Good day, everybody. This is Yin Yang in California. I'm reading to you from a novel by Gavin Newsom, Young Man in a Hurry, a memoir of discovery. We're on chapter 1, finally. It's been 3 years since my father's death, and his stories, with their perfect beginnings, middles, and ends, come back to me at the oddest times. He was an intellectual who spent almost all his solitary hours reading. He didn't leave Hilary and me much in the way of an estate, but he did pass, Hilary is with one L, but he did pass on his prized collection of novels, short stories, memoirs. He did pass on his prized collection of novels, short stories, memoirs, tomes of history, that means books of history, and poetry. He left us the Russian greats, the English greats, and most proudly the Irish greats. My luck, I've never been able to decipher a single classic of literature. Who would have guessed, certainly not my father, that his only son would be dyslexic? One of the struggles in my life is that my brain has trouble processing words on a page. If the text is too crowded, the story too woven, I lose track. My brain does better with nonfiction, but only if the words have room to breathe. People curious about my lifelong jousting with a neurological disorder naturally wonder how it complicates my job. They might notice that in my speeches and press conferences, I sometimes weigh down my sentences with words like iterative and demonstrable and contextualize and foundational. When I was in my early 20s, I found a dictionary that was typographically friendly and studied it front to back as a way to command words that would show my facility with the English language. This was no doubt compensation for my peculiar wiring. Through hard work and persistence, I have overcome a lot of obstacles on the path to becoming a more confident public speaker, but I have yet to find comfort reading a typewritten speech. I can't manage the spatial tracking of looking up, down, and up. It feels like vertigo. Reading from a teleprompter is easier only because the lines appear with plenty of space. Dyslexia explains my compulsion to master every facet of policy and every number in the state budget, and maybe even my fastidious note-taking and record-keeping. In a banker's box filled with objects from my growing up years, I can find my report cards from grammar school. Gavin mixes up his letters, my third-grade teacher wrote. His D's are B's. He can't read the alphabet, end quote. I couldn't say dress. It came out bress. I couldn't say order. It came out order. By the fourth grade, I was taking speech therapy classes after school. Quote, Gavin can correctly pronounce S sounds in isolation in words, but not in conversation. When he speaks, he substitutes th for S. But year after year, the word dyslexia never showed up in my school records. The actual name of the affliction I suffered from remained a mystery to the school and to me. Dyslexia came out as a piece of information about 20 years ago. I would say maybe even 30 years ago, around 1992 is when I remember hearing the word dyslexia for the first time, or having it become more part of the vernacular. So 1992, this man would have been in his 20s already, so they wouldn't have known. Anyway, back to the book. The man says, I got through childhood by compartmentalizing the world. Because I did not have the words, so many of my experiences as a kid never got imprinted as memories. I didn't have the ease with language my sister had, the vividness with which Hilary can summon the past. It's almost as if she is the older sibling. So it means he's the older sibling. Storytelling and drinking ran together on the Newsom side of my family. They might as well have been Irish twins, the way one prepared the ground for the other, the way one watched out for the other. Storytelling kept drinking from getting sloppy. liquor transmuted into lore. If the stories were told well and repeated enough times to be firmly planted into the next generation, vice might yet be redeemed, or so believed my great-grandmother, Belinda Newsom, aka Belle, the dowager with snow-white hair, whose trips around the rosary beads were all-day affairs. And I want to say that Irish twins, I think it means that the children are born apart, but they are like twins. To tell a good story, you had to live a good life, he says. And to live a good life, you had to engage with worlds different from your own. In San Francisco, a foreign place could be found on the other side of the hill. So that a boy growing up in the Marina District in the late 1970s needed only to venture to North Beach or Chinatown or the Mission or the Fillmore to interact with people whose music, art, dress, food, scene felt nearly like the occult. If you timed your adventure right and stayed open to its possibility, you might even come home with a story worth passing on. Even the friends you chose from your own station were selected in part because of the eccentricities they brought to the game. Pick them correctly, keep them for life, and they become the subjects of endless stories too. Of course, no well-yielded more storytelling than the family will, and no tale was told with more shine than the one that began with a naughty problem, naughty, Knotty, naughty problem at City Hall and ended with a greased palm. My father's fascination with the theater of politics came to him like the name William, though his father and his father's father, the first William, my great-grandfather, was an associate of A.P. Giannini, founder of the Bank of Italy. That's the Bank of America. Who, after the great earthquake and fire of 1906, when all the big banks had vanished, set up 2 planks on the Washington Street wharf to continue serving his customers. This first William Newsom, a man with a good sense of humor and a bad marriage, opened Giannini's branch at 29th and Mission and extended his loans to common folk on a handshake. I remember that the story had it that they would just ask for what do you call the name of the father, and that would be the handshake. Okay, the fact that the Mission District was filled with Irish immigrants who needed a familiar touch made the branch an early model of community banking, and my great-grandfather a trusted figure among his tribe. The Bank of Italy, replicating this community model, eventually became the Bank of America. It was said that my great-grandfather turned into a Democrat out of his compassion for the working man. He served as the San Francisco Commissioner of Public Works, a member of the kitchen cabinet of Mayor James Rolph, Rolph, later Governor Rolph, and then a builder who erected Commerce and Lowell High Schools. I attended Lowell High School. It's a great school, Lowell. It was named after the man in the East Coast. Hi, Gustavo Garcia. Nice to meet you. So I'm reading from the novel, from Gavin Newsom's novel, on what's the day? Today is Monday, right? Yes, it's Monday. So I read from a different book every day. My show is still under construction, but I am on Instagram a little bit. My name is Ying Yang with the M and underscores in between. So Ying underscore M underscore Yang. I'm going to figure out something else. So good to see you, and I'm glad you came by. I will talk to you guys later. Okay, old Kinderhook again. Old Kinderhook.